Early that overcast morning, Andrew's heart was pounding with each step. It was his first day working as a janitor at a large company, and the last thing he wanted was to be late. A light breeze rustled the leaves along the sidewalks while he quickened his pace, frequently checking his wristwatch. Rounding the corner, he came upon a scene that made him stop in his tracks. A woman, her clothes slightly torn, was quietly crying, leaning against a wall. She attempted to wipe away her tears with her hands, but seemed too weak even for that. Moved by compassion, he approached. "Are you all right?" he asked, concern evident in his voice as he noted her torn clothes and tear-stained face. She did not respond immediately. She seemed scared, perhaps even wary, yet did not pull away when he handed her a small towel he carried in his backpack. "Use this to cover yourself a bit," he offered, trying to sound calm. "It's nothing special, but it might help." The woman accepted the towel, covering what she could of her body. She remained silent, still unable to explain what had happened. He did not press her. Instead, noticing her lost expression, he decided to help in another way. "Please wait here for just a moment. I'll get you something to wear." She nodded silently, and he dashed off, disappearing around the next street corner. Within a few minutes, he returned with a package containing a pair of pants and a simple shirt, both brand new. "I didn't know your exact size, but I hope these fit. There's a snack bar down the road with a bathroom. If you like, you can go there and change." She thanked him softly, still drying her eyes. They walked together to the snack bar, where she went straight to the restroom. Meanwhile, he went to the counter and bought a snack and a juice. When she returned, the difference was noticeable. Though her eyes were still red and puffy, she looked a bit more at ease in the clean clothes. She sat at a table, eyeing the food he had bought. "Here, you must be hungry," he said. "I got a snack and a juice. I hope you like them." She took the cup and sipped, a faint, timid smile appearing on her face, the first smile he had seen since they met. "Thank you. I don't even know how to repay you," she said, voice shaky but sincere. He smiled in return, relieved to see her more comfortable. He wanted to ask what had happened, but something told him it was not the right time. He decided to respect that delicate moment. "You can tell me whenever you want, if you want. I won't pressure you. But before I go, at least tell me your name." "Mine is Andrew." She hesitated for an instant, as though torn between speaking or remaining silent. In the end, she gave in. "I'm Claire." Immediately after, she grabbed a napkin from the counter as Andrew scribbled something on a small piece of paper. His phone number. "If you need anything, just call. Don't hesitate," he said, handing her the piece of paper. "Unfortunately, I have to go now because it's my first day at work, and I can't be late." She clutched the small slip of paper to her chest, nodding in silence. Her eyes still held a glimmer of uncertainty, but there was also a hint of hope. "Thank you for everything, Andrew." He stood up, adjusted his backpack, and cast one last worried glance at her before leaving. He headed off toward his new job, his heart torn between first-day jitters and the urge to stay and ensure Claire would be all right. As he walked away, he could not help but wonder what might have happened to her, silently promising to be there for her if she ever needed. Back at the snack bar, Claire remained seated for a few more minutes, staring at the snack he had bought. She felt grateful, still confused, but with the strange sense that such a simple act of kindness might mark the start of something new in her life. She tucked his phone number into her pocket and, for the first time on that turbulent day, breathed a little more easily. Andrew arrived at the corporate building, his heart pounding. As soon as he passed the turnstile at the entrance, he saw the lobby clock showing he was already late. He tried to take a calming breath, but he could not shake the nerves when the manager, Mr. Brown, approached with a scowl on his face. "You're late, Andrew. On your very first day. I'm sorry I ended up helping a woman on the street. She was," he tried to explain. "Lies won't be tolerated here. If you don't want to work, you can still leave," Mr. Brown interrupted sharply. The reprimand echoed through the main hall, drawing curious glances from a few passing employees. Feeling humiliated, Andrew realized arguing would do no good, so he simply lowered his head and went to fetch his cleaning cart. His job was to look after the main floor, where the office of the company's director, Mr. Martin, was located. Mr. Martin was a serious man of around 45. The workspace was upscale, with big glass windows and expensive carpets requiring constant care to keep them impeccable. Andrew gathered his supplies from the storage area and took the elevator upstairs, checking each room before finally arriving at Mr. Martin's office, which was still empty. He was thankful the director was not there yet, as he was too anxious to face him. He cleaned the floor, organized the desk, and changed the trash with quick efficiency, but was startled by the sound of firm footsteps in the hallway. Mr. Martin walked in, pausing briefly to stare at him. "Next time you're late, you'll be fired." His voice was low but menacing. Andrew felt his face burn with shame. He had not expected someone so important to notice a missing janitor. Trembling, he gathered his cleaning tools and left the office without daring to reply. When the day's work ended, he went home exhausted and uneasy. Despite the tension, he felt grateful he still had a job. As soon as he opened the door to his small apartment, he was greeted by the familiar aroma of herbal tea. His mother, Mrs. Sarah, was sitting in her armchair, her reading glasses resting on her lap. She smiled as he walked in. "How was your day, my son?" she asked tenderly, her voice tinged with weariness from her fragile health. "It was tough, Mom. I almost lost my job before it even began, but I'll keep trying. Now I can help more with the bills and your medication." She stroked his face lovingly, proud of him. Andrew felt relieved to be reminded why he needed his salary so much, to ensure Mrs. Sarah had all the care she required. In the following days, he arrived earlier than necessary, determined not to give any reason to be fired. He paid attention to every detail while cleaning, even if it left him even more tired. Mr. Brown, ever vigilant, kept his distance when he noticed Andrew's dedication. Things were going relatively smoothly until one morning, while cleaning the corridor leading to the executive suite, Andrew glanced up and nearly jumped in surprise. A woman in an elegant suit and designer handbag was walking toward him. She exuded confidence, and yet he recognized her immediately. Claire, the same woman he had found crying in the street with torn clothes just a few days before. She recognized him as well. Their eyes met, and for a few seconds, Andrew thought she might say something. Claire started a slight smile, as if to greet him, but then Mr. Martin appeared, greeting her with an affectionate kiss that revealed the intimacy between them. They said nothing else. The two disappeared into the office, closing the door behind them. Andrew stood there, mop in hand, his head spinning. The image of Claire, desperate and vulnerable just days ago, now contrasted sharply with the confident woman walking by the director's side, as if she were a high-level executive or someone in his close circle. "What on earth is going on?" he mumbled under his breath, confused. How could Claire be so different now? How was she connected to Mr. Martin, the rigid director who barely spoke to Andrew? And why didn't she talk to him, limiting herself to a discreet smile? With no answers, Andrew continued cleaning, trying to focus on his work to keep his thoughts off the relentless questions. He still needed to hold on to his job to support his mother, and there was no room for distractions. Yet, try as he might, he could not forget the scene he had just witnessed. Claire, the mysterious woman he had helped in her moment of despair, now appeared to lead a completely different life, a situation that left him both intrigued and worried. In the days that followed his unexpected encounter with Claire, Andrew struggled with a flurry of thoughts. While trying to maintain his routine of arriving early, cleaning each floor meticulously, and fulfilling tasks flawlessly, he carried in his heart the memory of seeing her dressed like a top executive. On top of that, in the company of Mr. Martin. One afternoon, while Andrew was quietly mopping a lesser-used corridor, he heard gentle footsteps approaching. He looked up and saw Claire, elegantly dressed in a polished outfit. She seemed a bit hesitant. "I need to talk to you," she said, glancing around to ensure no one else was nearby. Andrew nodded, somewhat surprised. Claire pointed toward the door to the file room, a place rarely visited by other employees. Once inside, she locked the door, making his heart race. They stood face to face in the silent space. She spoke in a low voice, as if afraid of being overheard. First of all, I want to thank you for what you did that day. You were the only person who helped me. Andrew noticed gratitude mixed with concern in her expression. I couldn't just walk past you and pretend I didn't see. Anyone would have done the same. She shook her head. That's not true. Lots of people passed me on that street and acted like I wasn't there. By the time you appeared, I was almost giving up on seeking help. So please know that your gesture meant a lot to me. He offered a modest smile, recalling how shaken she had been that day. I'm glad I could help. But what happened anyway? Claire pressed her lips together, looking away. She seemed to be fighting an internal battle before answering. I can't explain. Not now. There are things I'd rather keep secret for the moment. Andrew nodded. Maybe it was too delicate to share. All right. I understand. She drew a deep breath, as if mustering courage to continue. I just want to ask you one more thing. Don't tell anyone here at the company about what happened. Not Mr. Brown, not Mr. Martin. No one. That's very important to me. Andrew frowned, puzzled, but agreed without hesitation. Don't worry. I won't tell anyone. She smiled, silently relieved. For a moment, the tension lifted, and he noticed a gentler light in her eyes. Thank you. Really. If I can ever return the favor. He waved off the idea. You don't owe me anything. But if you ever need help again, just call me. They shared a mutual look of understanding before Claire unlocked the door. They slipped out of the file room, heading in different directions so as not to raise suspicion. From that day on, Claire and Andrew began speaking more often at work. She would seek him out at times when the hallways were empty or in those small intervals when the building grew quieter. They'd chat casually about everyday life or trade knowing smiles. Yet Andrew noticed Claire never approached him if anyone was around. If another employee showed up, she would wave from a distance and quickly leave. Although he found her cautious behavior odd, Andrew chose not to question it. He sensed there were deeper reasons behind her secrecy and respected her wishes. All he really wanted was to repay her trust by keeping his word. And most importantly, hold on to the job that allowed him to take care of his mother, Mrs. Sarah, who greeted him every day at home with the same loving smile. On days when Martin was away on business, the company's atmosphere lightened. Claire seemed more relaxed and even smiled more often, despite being his fiancée. Some employees whispered that Martin's trips might be linked to corporate mergers or partnerships, but few knew for sure. Andrew simply carried on with his quiet cleaning routine, noticing only that Claire appeared far less tense in Martin's absence. One night, around 11 o'clock, Andrew was finishing his shift. He had stayed late to complete some tasks, and nearly everyone else had gone home. Tired, he headed to a bus stop on a dimly lit, deserted street. He sat on the bench, anxiously checking the time and surroundings while waiting. Suddenly, a car pulled up and someone called out, "Andrew, wait." He turned and recognized Claire at the wheel of a luxury sedan pulling out of the company parking lot. She rolled down the window and motioned for him to come closer. "Get in. I'll give you a ride. It's too late, and this place isn't safe." Andrew hesitated, eyeing the empty street. "It's okay, Claire. Thanks, but I'd rather wait for the bus." She frowned, kindly persisting. "It's late. Are you really going to wait here all alone? Something bad could happen, Andrew." He rubbed his neck nervously. He was afraid of being spotted leaving with Claire and becoming the subject of gossip. He already had enough trouble with Mr. Brown and did not want more rumors. "Well, if anyone sees us together, they might start talking. You know how people are." Claire glanced around, confirming there was indeed no one else around. "There's nobody here. Don't worry." He sighed, swayed by her concern. "All right, then. Thanks for the lift." He got in the car and fastened his seatbelt. As she drove through the deserted streets, they settled into a more relaxed mood. "So you're just now heading home?" she asked, breaking the silence. Yeah, I needed to stay late to finish some things, Andrew replied. Plus, I've been doing extra hours to help my mom. She's pretty sick, and I want to make sure she has everything she needs. Claire gave him a sympathetic look. It's touching how much you care about your mother. And you live with her, right? He nodded. Ever since my dad passed, it's just the two of us. I do what I can to take care of her. A brief silence followed, broken only by the sound of the car's tires on the asphalt. Claire kept her hands firmly on the wheel. What about you? Andrew ventured. I hope I'm not overstepping, but you're engaged to Mr. Martin, right? Claire remained quiet for a moment, as if weighing what she could share. Yes, we're engaged. He's the company director, but he'll actually own it someday. His father, the current owner, is quite elderly and may fully retire soon. Andrew chose not to push her for more details about her relationship. He sensed a certain discomfort in her voice at the mention of Martin. She did not elaborate, merely offering that short explanation. Upon reaching Andrew's house, he thanked her sincerely. Really, Claire, thanks. You saved my night. Just then Mrs. Sarah, who had been watching through the window, noticed her son arriving in a different car. Curious and welcoming, she came outside to greet their guest. Oh, hello, dear. Thank you for bringing Andrew. Would you like to come in for some tea? Claire gave a gentle smile, glancing briefly at Andrew, who shrugged as if to say he did not mind. Sure, I'd love to. They went inside, and Mrs. Sarah promptly prepared her usual evening chamomile and passion fruit tea, known for its calming effect. She offered it to both guests as they sat in the modestly decorated living room, filled with old photographs. Thank you, Mrs. Sarah. It's delicious, Claire remarked after taking her first sip. The conversation flowed easily. Sarah asked about work, spoke of how Andrew had always been a dedicated son, and mentioned how glad she was he had found a job at such a large company. Claire responded with polite compliments about Andrew's good manners, but avoided going into detail about her engagement or personal life. After a few minutes, Claire checked the time and said her goodbyes, explaining she needed to get home. Sarah walked her to the door, again expressing thanks for the ride. Come back any time you like, my dear, Sarah said. You'll always find a warm cup of tea and good company here. Claire smiled, genuinely moved by Sarah's kindness. Thank you, Mrs. Sarah. I'll definitely take you up on that sometime. Andrew opened the gate so she could drive off. He stood on the sidewalk, watching her go, his mind a whirlwind of gratitude for her help, curiosity about her relationship with Martin, and a sense that Claire had more secrets than she let on. Even so, he set aside speculation, choosing instead to appreciate the fleeting moment of hope. Hope for his dream of studying veterinary medicine someday, and hope for a sincere friendship with this intriguing woman. The next day, around midday, Claire passed by the corridor with some company computers. It was unusual for anyone to be there at that hour, as most office staff were typically in meetings or nearly finishing their shifts. Approaching, she saw Andrew, focused on a screen full of ads for furniture stores and medical equipment. Andrew, are you all right? She asked, her brow slightly raised. He turned around quickly, as if caught off guard. Hi, Claire. I'm sorry, I'm not just idly browsing, I promise. I'm researching something. What are you researching? She asked, intrigued. Andrew sighed, feeling a bit embarrassed. I'm looking for an orthopedic bed for my mom. The doctor recommended it a year ago because of her chronic back pain. They say it helps relieve discomfort. But only now with this job, can I even think about buying one? Claire leaned in, peering over his shoulder at the screen. And you're trying to find a sale? He nodded, pointing to the prices flashing across the site. Yeah, these beds are really expensive, so I need to look carefully. Any discount helps. She gave him a reassuring smile, placing a light hand on his shoulder. I hope you find the best option soon, Andrew. Your mom deserves every comfort. He smiled gratefully. Thanks, Claire. It's really important to me that she sleeps better. Their conversation ended there, as other employees appeared in the hallway. Claire didn't like drawing attention when talking to Andrew. They exchanged a brief smile before parting ways. The following day was a Saturday, and Andrew was at home, thankful for a break after a hectic week. He was helping Mrs. Sarah in the kitchen when his phone buzzed. He answered without checking who it was, surprised to hear the familiar voice. "Hi, Andrew, it's Claire." He took a second to recall that, some time ago, he had given her his number, right after finding her in distress on the street. "Claire, how are you? I wasn't expecting your call. I'm on my way to your house. Are you there?" "Yeah, I am." "Did something happen?" he asked, concerned. "I'll explain when I arrive." Shortly afterward, Andrew heard the sound of a truck stopping outside the gate. He stepped out to investigate and saw Claire getting out of a luxury car, accompanied by 2 delivery men who were unloading something from the truck's cargo area. "What's this, Claire?" he asked, puzzled. The men carefully maneuvered a large box along the sidewalk toward the house. "This your order, sir?" one of them asked as Claire directed them. She smiled. "It's the orthopedic bed for your mom." Andrew's eyes went wide. "What? Wait, no. I can't accept this, Claire. It's too expensive." She stood firm, though her voice was kind. "You mentioned you were looking for one, and I wanted to help. Please accept it." Mrs. Sarah, hearing voices, came to the door, curious. "My son, what's going on?" As soon as the delivery men opened the box, it was clear it was a high-end orthopedic bed with adjustable height and other features for added comfort. Mrs. Sarah, astonished, could not contain her smile upon realizing what it was. "Oh my goodness, is this for me?" she asked, unable to hide her emotion. Andrew tried once again to refuse, still rattled at the idea of receiving such an expensive gift. "Claire, I really appreciate it, but seriously, this is too much." Before he could continue, Mrs. Sarah went over to the bed, which the delivery men had already set up in the living room, and lay down. "This is wonderful," she said, feeling how the mattress adjusted to her back. "Oh, it's so comfortable." In seconds, her relief was so great that, given her constant pain and insomnia, she fell asleep almost instantly. Claire watched quietly, then looked at Andrew, who stood torn between gratitude and discomfort. "Are you really going to deny your mother this relief?" she asked softly, careful not to wake Mrs. Sarah. He sighed, realizing he could not reject such a kind gesture after seeing his mother's immediate comfort. "Thank you, Claire. Truly, I don't know how to repay you." She shook her head. "You've already done so much for me. Think of this as a small thank you. I'm glad I could help." Visibly moved, Andrew thanked her again, walking her to the door. Claire took one last compassionate glance at Mrs. Sarah, sleeping deeply on her new bed, then returned to her car without further explanation. Andrew lingered at the gate, watching as the truck pulled away, still in disbelief at what had just happened. Inside the house, Mrs. Sarah breathed peacefully, enjoying the best rest she had experienced in a long time. The next morning, Andrew saw Claire near the reception desk. He tried to greet her with a warm smile, recalling how she had just given such a generous gift for his mother. But Claire only responded with a cold nod, turning her face away immediately. Andrew felt his heart clench, wondering if he had done something wrong. Moments later, he realized the reason for her sudden change in demeanor. Martin had returned from his trip. There he was, talking to employees in the hallway, while Claire maintained a rigid posture and tense expression whenever she passed him. Over the following days, her attitude toward Andrew turned icy. She ignored his greetings and avoided his gaze, especially when Martin was nearby. She must have her reasons, Andrew told himself, deciding not to push her. He carried on with his tasks, enduring the oppressive atmosphere that seemed to linger around them. One afternoon, however, he saw Claire heading toward the file room looking anxious. Andrew waited a moment and decided to follow, concerned. As he opened the door, he noticed Claire had not realized he was there. She was reapplying her makeup before a small mirror, wiping away tears that kept falling. "Claire, are you okay?" he asked quietly. She stashed the mirror away abruptly and stared at him, startled. "What are you doing here?" Andrew stepped back slightly but still spoke with concern. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I saw you were upset and wanted to check if you needed help." Claire drew a shaky breath, her eyes still brimming with tears. "It's none of your business." Then she cleared her throat, as if recognizing her own harshness. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to snap." Andrew nodded, turning to leave. "It's all right. If you need anything, just let me know." He was almost out the door when he heard her trembling voice. "Sometimes I do things I don't want to, but I have to help someone I love." Without elaborating further, Claire slipped by him. Andrew remained in the room, worried and confused. Meanwhile, rumors about Claire and Martin's wedding spread quickly throughout the company, becoming the favorite topic of gossip. "They're such an odd couple, don't you think? She's gorgeous, and he's, well, not exactly good-looking. It's all about money, she just wants his fortune." Among all the chatter, one particular rumor reached Andrew's ears. People claimed Claire was the daughter of a major businessman on the brink of bankruptcy, and that, to save her father's business, she needed to marry Martin, the future owner of a corporate empire. Piecing things together, Andrew began to understand her conflicted, anxious behavior. Seizing a moment alone with Claire, he approached her. "Claire, I know what's going on. I heard some comments and realized you're marrying Martin to save your father's company. And he mistreats you, doesn't he?" She was silent for a few seconds, eyes fixed on the floor before responding. "You don't understand, Andrew. I'd do anything to help my dad, just like you do everything for your mother." Andrew tilted his head, remembering all he had sacrificed for Mrs. Sarah. Even so, he tried to protest. "But marrying someone who makes you suffer? You can't go through with it." He lowered his voice, afraid of being overheard. "He's the one who made you cry in the street that day, isn't he?" Claire nodded, her face clouded by heartbreak. "Martin is extremely jealous. At one party, I said, 'Good morning' to a handsome man, just out of courtesy, and Martin flew into a rage. He fought with me in the car, yelled, insulted me. And in the heat of his anger, he pushed me out while it was still moving. I hit the asphalt, my clothes tore. That was how you found me." Andrew felt immediate indignation. "You can't marry a man like that, Claire. This is wrong." She closed her eyes, drawing a long breath, but her resolve did not waver. "I'm not changing my mind. My father needs this union. And you, of all people, know what it's like to want to save someone you love." She said no more, walking away and ending the conversation. Andrew remained rooted to the spot, heart filled with anger and concern, feeling powerless in the face of a predicament he could not fix. All he could do was hope that somehow Claire would find a way out before it was too late. As the days wore on, the work environment became increasingly stressful for Andrew. Claire, who once exchanged discreet conversations and glances with him, now walked with her head down, focused on her own worries. She barely managed a good morning, and seemed to grow more and more tense as the wedding drew near. One morning, Andrew was in the main lobby when he witnessed Claire speaking harshly to a new employee named Ethan, who was trying to deliver some documents for her to sign. "Ms. Claire, here are the marketing reports the board requested." "And why are you bringing me this now?" she retorted impatiently. "Can't you see I'm busy?" "Sorry, ma'am, but the manager himself asked me to." "Then tell the manager to handle it himself," she snapped. "I don't have time for rookie reports." Without allowing Ethan to reply, Claire spun around, leaving him embarrassed. Andrew, watching from a distance, felt uneasy. This wasn't the caring Claire he had known. The next day, toward the end of the work shift, Andrew was cleaning near Martin's office when he heard raised voices. He crept closer to the slightly open door and recognized an argument between Martin and Claire. "So you were smiling at that man in the elevator? What did he say that was so funny?" "For goodness sake, Martin, he just told me a silly story to break the ice. We were stuck in the elevator for a few minutes. Don't lie to me, Martin snapped. I know exactly what kind of woman you are if you talk too much with strangers. A tense silence followed, interrupted by a muffled cry of pain from Claire. Without thinking twice, Andrew burst through the door to see Martin gripping her arm so tightly it was red. Let go of her, Andrew shouted, rushing over to pull Martin away from Claire. Martin stepped back, stunned by the audacity of a mere janitor. It took him a few seconds to find his voice. Who do you think you are to butt in where you're not wanted? Andrew took a shaky breath, struggling to contain his anger. I'm just protecting Claire from your abuse. Martin glared at Claire, still seething. So this is how it is. You're going to let this janitor speak to me like that? Your fiancé? Claire dried her tears and, in a moment Andrew never saw coming, she turned and slapped him hard across the face. The sound echoed through the office, leaving Andrew shocked. Who do you think you are to control my life? She screamed, hand still raised. Andrew, stunned, put his hand to the spot where she had struck him. He had never expected her to lash out like that. Next, Claire grabbed his arm and shoved him out the door. Several employees had gathered outside, drawn by the shouting. He's fired, Claire announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. I don't want to see this man here ever again. Andrew's face burned with humiliation, aware of the curious looks and hushed conversations. He forced himself to stay composed, but inside he was crumbling. Claire, what about my mother? He managed, thinking of the hardship he would face without a job. She turned away, cold. That's not my problem. Then she went back into the office, slamming the door. Andrew stood alone in the corridor, torn between humiliation, anger, and despair. He knew that without this income, Mrs. Sarah's health would be even more precarious. The image of Claire striking him haunted him, yet he could not bring himself to hate her. Part of him feared she was acting under extreme pressure. But for now, he had to focus on his own pain and his uncertain future. He left the company feeling defeated, doing his best to quell the rising anger inside him. Days passed after the incident at the company. Claire tried repeatedly to contact Andrew, calling him several times a day, showing up in front of his house, knocking on his door to plead for forgiveness. He remained resolute in avoiding her. He did not answer calls, respond to messages, or open the door when she came by. Mrs. Sarah, for her part, respected her son's decision, though she was saddened by the rift. Not wanting any more drama, Andrew shifted his focus to what mattered most: finding a new job to support his mother. He spent his days sending out resumes and going to interviews until, at last, he was hired at a shoe store. The environment there was calm, customers were generally polite, and the pay was surprisingly better than what he earned as a janitor. Plus he got a commission from successful sales. One afternoon, while he was behind the counter, a well-dressed older gentleman walked in, looking for dress shoes. Andrew served him with professional courtesy and warmth, showing him the models that matched his style. When the purchase was complete, the man smiled in satisfaction. Thank you, son. You've been very helpful. Thank you for choosing us, Andrew replied, boxing the shoes. Will you be taking these? Yes, indeed. They're perfect. The man paused, studying Andrew intently. You know, my daughter is being foolish. Andrew frowned, unsure of the man's meaning. Excuse me, sir. I don't understand. I'll be direct, he said, taking a deep breath. I'm Claire's father. Andrew's heart skipped a beat. He never expected to meet Claire's father, especially like this. He kept his composure, but was momentarily at a loss for words. Oh, I see. He stammered. That's right. Claire told me everything that happened, the argument with Martin, how horribly she treated you, and how she regretted it all afterward. Andrew looked around, as if searching for somewhere to escape the unexpected conversation, but the store was quiet. There were no other customers nearby. I'm sorry things turned out that way, he murmured, still unsure how to respond. Mr. Thompson ran his hand through his gray hair, trying to remain calm. She did it all on her own to help me. My business is failing, but I never forced her into anything. She chose to accept Martin's proposal, believing that would save my company. I understand, Andrew said quietly, recalling how desperate Claire had been. But I've talked with Claire at length, and she's finally realized it's not worth sacrificing her own happiness. She ended her engagement in front of everyone at the company. He sighed, seeming a bit relieved at the memory. She knows she treated you terribly. That's why she's been trying to make amends. Andrew lowered his gaze, remembering each humiliating moment, especially the slap that still stung in his memory. I don't know what to say, sir. I wasn't expecting to meet her father here. I'm only asking that you allow her to close this chapter, Mr. Thompson said. Maybe you won't remain friends, but at least a final conversation might bring the dignified closure you both deserve. Andrew stayed silent for a few moments, pondering. He thought of his mother, the recent hardships, and especially the pain he had seen in Claire's eyes as everything unraveled. Finally, he exhaled slowly. All right. If she wants to talk, she can come. I won't refuse to hear her. Mr. Thompson smiled, relieved. Thank you, son. I won't keep you from your work any longer. Here's my payment. He handed Andrew his card, then took the boxed shoes. Take care, Andrew. And thank you for understanding. Andrew walked him to the door, still dazed by the encounter. Once the man left, he took a moment to compose himself, replaying it all in his mind. Claire had broken off the engagement, was remorseful, and now her father had personally come to ask Andrew to listen to her. Deep down, Andrew felt a complex mix of curiosity, apprehension, and perhaps a faint hope for real resolution. A few days later, Claire appeared at Andrew's home. Mrs. Sarah was in the kitchen baking a cake. When she answered the door and saw Claire, she invited her inside without hesitation. Andrew, sitting in the living room, stood up upon hearing footsteps and felt a tightness in his chest when he saw her again. Hi, Andrew, Claire said gently, regret filling her gaze. Hi, he replied, crossing his arms. He could not hide a certain stiffness in his stance. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Mrs. Sarah, sensing the tension, returned to the kitchen to give them some privacy. Will you please hear me out? Claire asked, stepping closer. I need to tell you everything I'm feeling. Andrew drew a deep breath, avoiding her eyes. Go ahead. She studied him, remembering all her attempts to reach him and how he had shut her out. Finally, she decided to be completely upfront. I'm so sorry for everything that happened, for what I did, the slap, the harsh words, the way I behaved. I was under so much pressure, convinced I had to do anything to save my father's company. Andrew let out the breath he'd been holding, recalling just how deeply her actions had hurt him. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You got me fired. Claire dropped her gaze, tears threatening to form again. I know. I regret it more than I can say. I panicked when Martin confronted us. I thought if I opposed him, things would get worse. I'm not trying to justify what I did, but I want you to understand I was blinded by fear. Andrew watched her closely. He could see genuine remorse and pain in her expression. And now, what are you going to do? She ran a hand through her hair, thinking, I'll look for a job before my father's business fully collapses. I want to help him, but I'm not going to sacrifice myself in an abusive marriage. Andrew remembered what Mr. Thompson had told him at the shoe store. By the way, the place I'm working now is looking for a manager for a new branch. You've got plenty of experience, don't you? Claire's eyes widened, surprised and touched. Really? You'd recommend me? After everything? He offered a faint smile. I can recommend you, yes. But that doesn't erase what happened. Still, I think we both deserve a chance to start over. At that, she stepped closer, tears welling in her eyes. Forgive me, Andrew. I mean it. He finally looked into her eyes and, after a moment's hesitation, nodded. I forgive you. She let out a soft sigh of relief, tears rolling down her cheeks in quiet gratitude. Though emotional, she managed a small, grateful smile. In the weeks that followed, Claire went for the management interview at the shoe store. Thanks to her solid experience, she was hired. She quickly adapted to the environment, proving herself a competent and caring leader. Now she and Andrew saw each other every day at work, rekindling a bond that grew stronger, this time with mutual honesty. "Thank you for believing in me," she would say sometimes, recalling how she had once driven him away so cruelly. "I always knew you could do it," Andrew would reply, offering a small, confident grin. Despite the growing warmth between them, the sting of past hurt lingered for a while. Claire repeatedly asked for forgiveness, obviously still burdened by the pain she had caused. Slowly, Andrew managed to leave the anger behind, acknowledging her sincere transformation. Meanwhile, Martin inherited his father's entire company when the older man officially retired. Lacking his father's expertise and without the strategic alliances once secured through Claire's connections, Martin's leadership soon ran the firm into internal conflicts. Rumor had it that multiple departments were in turmoil, and each day of poor management pushed him deeper into debt. Mr. Thompson's business did end up failing, but with his modest retirement plan and a few personal investments, he managed to live a simple yet comfortable life. Months went by, and life took surprisingly peaceful turns for Andrew and Claire. One day, Mrs. Sarah invited Mr. Thompson to dinner at her home. It was nothing fancy, but made with care. The table was set with homemade dishes that filled the air with comforting aromas. Sarah sat at the head of the table, brimming with pride to see her son so happy. Andrew, more self-assured than ever, reached out to hold Claire's hand. Her father, seated across, observed the scene with a contented smile. "Before we start eating," Sarah began, raising her teacup in an impromptu toast, "I want to say how happy I am to have us all here together." Andrew agreed, looking tenderly at Claire. "And I want to share some news," he announced, drawing everyone's attention. "Claire and I are dating." Mr. Thompson clapped his hands, delighted to see his daughter free of the turmoil she had endured. Sarah beamed with emotion, and Claire returned Andrew's gaze with shining, joyful eyes. There in that small living room, amid laughter and the aroma of Sarah's homemade cooking, dinner unfolded in a quiet celebration. After so many storms, each person had found a way to rebuild, and the future now stretched ahead, offering new possibilities for hope and happiness.